Okay, let's just imagine for a second. It's early 2026. After almost 2 decades of on-again, off-again talks, the European Union and India finally sign a massive trade deal. So what would that actually look like? Well, we're going to dive into a deal of this scale because, let me tell you, if this happens, it's not just another agreement. It's a fundamental shift in the entire global economic landscape.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen, she called it the mother of all trade deals. I mean, come on, that single quote, it just perfectly captures the enormous, almost mind-boggling scale and ambition of what we're talking about here. And the timing on this couldn't be more crucial. I mean, think about the world right now. We've got trade disruptions everywhere, rising geopolitical tensions, and in the middle of all that chaos, this deal sends a really powerful signal. It's these two democratic powerhouses basically saying, hey, we still believe in open, rules-based trade.
All right, so to really get a handle on the impact here, let's just look at the sheer scale of this partnership. We're going to get into the big numbers, and trust me, they are absolutely staggering.
So get this, 2 billion. That's the combined population of this new free trade zone. That's right, 2 billion people brought together by the world's two biggest democracies. We're talking about one of the largest single economic zones ever created in history. And this isn't just about population, not by a long shot. We're talking about economic heavy hitters here. You've got the EU, the world's second largest economy, and then you have India, which is the fastest growing large economy on the planet, now sitting at number 4. So this deal is literally linking two giants.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for businesses, like on the ground? Well, how about 4 billion euros? That's the estimated annual savings in duties for European companies exporting to India. 4 billion euros that can be reinvested, used to make things cheaper, or just fuel more growth. That's a huge number.
And here's where you see just how deep this deal goes. It's incredibly comprehensive. It's going to get rid of tariffs on almost 97% of EU goods going to India, and get this, an unbelievable 99.5% of Indian goods coming into the EU. I mean, that is about as close to total free trade as you could ever hope to see.
Okay, so with all these tariffs getting slashed, the big question is, who are the winners and what about the trade-offs? Let's dive in and see which sectors are really going to benefit from unlocking these new markets. And this just lays it out so clearly for European exporters. I mean, just look at this. European cars face tariffs up to 110%. That's going to be phased down to just 10%. And wine, a whopping 150% tariff, drops all the way to 20%. This is an absolute game changer for competitiveness in that huge Indian market. And like I said, it's absolutely a two-way street. For India, this is a gigantic boost for its key labor-intensive sectors. Things like textiles, leather, jewelry. These industries were really struggling against competitors that already had tariff-free access to the EU. This deal completely levels the playing field and could end up creating millions of new jobs. But of course, in a deal this massive, not everything was on the table. You have to have compromise. The negotiators, they had to be realistic, and that meant both sides agreed to protect the sectors that are most sensitive to them. And what does that mean in practice? Well, you can see here, key agricultural sectors were protected. So the EU kept its protections on things like beef, chicken, rice, and sugar. And India did the same for its super important dairy, cereals, and poultry sectors. This was all about protecting millions of farmers and rural livelihoods on both sides. So, getting all those tariff cuts sorted out was one thing. But honestly, the toughest hurdles, the things that almost killed the deal, were about climate and capital. And the biggest issue by far was the EU's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, or CBAM. So what is it? Well, to put it simply, it's a carbon tax on imports. It's designed to put a carbon price on certain goods like steel and aluminum so that stuff made outside the EU faces the same kind of carbon costs as stuff made inside. And as you can imagine, this created a major divide. On one side, India was really concerned, viewing it as a potential trade barrier that could just crush the competitiveness of its key exports like steel. But on the other side, for the EU, this was a non-negotiable part of its climate policy. And honestly, for a while there, it looked like this one issue might derail the entire agreement. But they figured it out. And the compromise is actually pretty brilliant. Instead of having a standoff, they created something called a green partnership.
The deal is the EU will provide a ton of financial and tech support to help Indian industries actually decarbonize. So they turned what was a massive point of conflict into a new area of cooperation. And that really highlights a crucial point here. This agreement is about way more than just trade. This is about building a deep, strategic partnership.
At its very core, this whole deal is a political statement. It's a powerful partnership between the world's biggest democracies. It creates this kind of stable anchor based on shared values in what feels like an increasingly unstable world.
And getting here was a long, long road. I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. The timeline says it all. Negotiations first kicked off way back in 2007. Then they stalled completely and were suspended in 2013 for almost a decade. It wasn't until 2022 that they were relaunched, finally leading to this historic agreement. It took incredible political will to make this happen. And strategically, this is a really smart move. In an era where everyone is worried about supply chain disruptions, this deal is all about building resilience. It's a clear move by both sides to diversify and move away from being too dependent on any one single country.
So the agreement is concluded, which is huge, but it's not actually in force yet. So what happens next? What's the road to ratification? Well, there's a multi-step process to get through. First, the whole text has to get a legal scrub and be translated. Then it gets officially signed. After that, it has to get consent from the European Parliament, and then it has to be ratified by both India and all the individual EU member states. The hope is that the whole thing will be fully implemented and in force sometime in 2027.
So as we watch all of this unfold, it really leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? In a world that feels so full of division and uncertainty, could this massive, ambitious, and strategic agreement between these two democratic giants actually become the blueprint for how trade gets done from now on?